What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of not HLTV Fantasy, but my Ego Fantasy. So Ego app is a completely different fantasy site where you can play Counter-Strike Fantasy. And I'm kind of partnering up with them to make some content on their fantasy as well, because I've been kind of playing their stuff and following their fantasy site for a while now. So it just makes sense to create some content for them as well on my YouTube channel. So I'm gonna kind of divide this video into three parts, and I'll try to put some timestamps in the video if I can. But either way, this first part is gonna be about how Ego Fantasy works. I'll just go over this site, and you will get to kind of learn how it works. In the second part, I'll just go over which teams I think will do the best in EPL Season 15 groups. I kind of went over Group A already in my HLTV Fantasy video for Group A. So if you haven't seen my opinions on this group, go check that one out. And then I will, I'll just talk about the rest of the groups. And because of the situation in Ukraine, I'm gonna there's some uncertainty about Virtus Pro and Gambit and whether or not they can actually take part in this. We'll have to see how that goes. I'm gonna just make my assessment based on the expectation that they will be playing, because right now we don't have any different information about it, and there is the kind of chance that these players will get to play, just not under these team names, but that shouldn't really impact fantasy, at least. And then the last part is gonna be actually me going and making my lineup on Ego app. But let's start off with the first part. So, as I said, it's pretty similar to HLTV Fantasy, and there's some key differences. First of all, I'll link these fantasy rules in the description down below if you wanna check them out as well. This is just how EPL is kind of how it goes, just the EPL format. There's prizes, as you would expect. Pretty good looking prizes. Getting first with a knife would be really nice. But any of these other ones I would also take, why not? But yeah. Oh yeah, I'll say this as well. So there's different leagues. So when you make a lineup, first of all, you're always taking part in the priced league, this one. And then if you join different leagues, your same lineup will take part in that league as well. There's a league for me. There's a league for Ed Danne Ed, who won the previous HLTV Fantasy season. And then there's one for Prima Esport. Then, and I think there's other leagues as well, by the way. So anyone can kind of make their own league as well. This is how the points are calculated, which is the important part. So each kill will be 0.3 points. Each assist will be 0.2 points. Actually, since I last checked this out, it's been kind of reduced from 0.3, and I think this is probably better. I think it was kind of odd, and in any ranking should probably value a kill more than an assist. Each death is negative 0.15, and then from KD you get 0 to 4 points. Winning a match 2 points, losing a match 0 points. So every player in your active roster, because you always have one player on the bench, so each player in your active roster will receive points per series rather than per map. Then we have map 1, 11 points. Yeah. So it's always if there's several maps, it's divided up, like the rating divided based on the maps. Makes sense. And then the 2 points for winning the series. Captain feature. If you've ever played any other fantasy sports, like for example Premier League Fantasy, you will know this fantasy feature from those ones. And in this one, it works pretty similarly, where you choose a captain for your lineup, and that captain will earn 1.3 times the points. That makes a lot of sense. Then we have selling a player. You can sell players twice per league. And then there's, there's some differences between tournaments, which you can check per tournament, but usually it can be 2. Basically, you just sell a player and you can buy a new one, which is at its best when, for example, your player has already played all his games and another player is still yet to play some games. Shouldn't matter for EPL. I think all games are pretty much at the same time. Bench mechanics. So as I said, there are 6 players on your squad, and you can swap players from the bench onto the playing field once a day. Again, it doesn't always make sense to even do the swap during the day because if the players play at the same time. But if there's situations where players play at different times, it might be good to swap. Point padding, similar to HLTV. You get 5 points whenever your team doesn't play in a stage of a tournament. So, for example, if you get invited to a round that's further from the start round, you'll get 5 points. So that's always nice. Then the wipe token. So this is very new, even if you've played Ego App Fantasy before. You get 4 of these for EPL Season 15, and how it works is you just reset your squad. You can buy, all of your players are sold, you still keep the points, but you have to buy new players. And just works very well in this EPL system because it goes first a Group A plays, then Group B, then Group C, and it would be kind of boring if you only had fantasy lineup for like one of the groups, for example. So this is a good way of always having a lineup that plays. Yeah, okay. And here's the leagues. There's Global League and these leagues. They're the Ego leagues. That's basically everything for the rules of the fantasy. And let's go into looking at EPL Season 15. Again, I'll link this in the description down below so you can go check that out. So let's go and start with Group B, Vitality, VP, FaZe, Furia, and Sprouts. This is definitely the hardest group of these ones. It has to be said, the hardest group. I would say any team can make it through. Sprout is probably the least likely. Then ENCE and Furia are pretty even, probably. FaZe, VP, Vitality are like the favorites, but yeah. I think Vitality is the number 1 team you should consider. And FaZe was really, FaZe just won an event. I guess FaZe might be like favorite over Vitality right now, especially if they got like, JKS played very well, but still it's better to have Rain in his roles. This FaZe lineup could be very, very dangerous. I think Vitality, FaZe is probably the 2 teams I would pick from first, and then VP for 1 player, maybe an ENCE or Furia guy. Group C, Gambit, Liquid, Godsend, Big, Movistar, Party Astronauts. Again, we don't know about Gambit and what's gonna happen with that team, but I think they are the favorites going into this though. This is probably the weakest of the groups, I would say. Actually, I'm pretty certain this is the weakest. Liquid probably make it through this, as well as Big, but Godsend could upset either of those. Even Movistar could upset either of those, but those are like the favorites for me. Group D, Na'Vi has to be a favorite still, even though they haven't been quite themselves yet so far, which is understandable this year. There's Heroic, who are very decent and probably make it through this pretty easily. Heroic is the kind of team that really seems to crush the slightly lower tier. I kind of have this image of them where they always go like 5-0 in groups, or they advanced in Katowice, they got directly to the semis. stuff like this. But then they struggle against the higher tier opposition and can't quite beat like the Navis and Phases and G2s of the world. Astralis, I mean, so hard. I mean, okay, they have Far League now. I think Far League is an improvement upon Lucky. I'm pretty excited to see how it goes, but I'm not too optimistic. Then Complexity could do stuff, e.g. Ago, probably not the best teams, but I think Navi Heroic are absolutely the favorites. So, of course, as this is an Ego App Fantasy thing, I'm gonna kind of talk about which teams I want to pick my players from. So Group B, I would go with Vitality, FaZe, and VP. Group C, I'll go with Gambit, and then probably Big and Liquid. Yeah, I might maybe Godsend based on the price of the players. Depends a bit. And then we have Navi, Heroic, and I think Astralis. I think Astralis are gonna clear this stage still. Okay, but either way, let's go to Fantasy. Okay. This is how it works. You go into this Fantasy column here after you've made an account and downloaded the app and stuff like this. So Vardu. Here we pick the lineup. Pretty easy stuff. I think for EPL, like the bench player is always an important part. And the question for me is it just best to pick a super cheap bench player who's just going to be on the bench? Especially now that we have like when there's like a limited amount of swaps and sells. I think it's probably best, honestly, to just go for the cheapest player. And here's all the players. Yeah, they have only allowed players from Group A so far. So BMOS is by far the cheapest. Honestly, BMOS, I have some okay expectations for here in this event, but still, I think it just makes a lot of sense to pick him up. The LFO players are just slightly too expensive in comparison. But okay, I think BMOS for the bench, at least for now, makes a ton of sense. So then, just like in HLTV, I think G2, of course, should be very good. If Nico, Hunter, Monesi is pretty cheap. I'll have Monesi for now. And you probably have like, yeah, Alexi B is so cheap as well. I actually picked Alexi B in my HLTV Fantasy. It might be worth picking here as well. I'm not sure about a Nico. So then I also kind of thought Mouse and NIP would do well. I think Rez is gonna do well here. He was pretty good so far in the last few events. I also picked Frozen up. I think Mouse is probably gonna go through instead of Entropic. It's a bit, like, I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think it's more likely to happen. So I might go with Frozen. And who would I go with? Like Torzi is very... No, wait. Oh, yeah, I can't pick another mouse player because I have Bemas on the bench. We have 403 grand. Can I go Nico and... Go Nico Elian? We could go Nico... Nico... We can definitely get Nico in this lineup if we want to. Monesi is so cheap here. He should probably be picked pretty much every time. I think, how much is it? Like, so we have 1 grand. I think it's around $166 is about like the average player price that you should go for. I mean, Alien could make sense like this. Then we don't have double nip. If I sell Frozen here, I could get a... I don't know if... I don't want to go Roland. I think this makes more sense. This leaves $6 in the budget, which is not too bad. I could also go like Hunter instead of... I sell Monesi 60. I could get a Crad, but no, Monesi has to be better than Crad. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna be replacing Bimas with anyone during the tournament, honestly. Unless he like does super well in some of the first games, maybe then there's a chance I do that. I'm almost having a bit of trouble using all my money because there's like the NIP players are just pretty cheap, and honestly Mouse as well. I do like Elian. I think Elian's gonna do well in this event, even though Entropic might not. Rosen, Res, Mones, Nico, Bimas, bench. I like this. I think this is the squad I want to go for. Yeah, I'm just kind of planning on not taking Bimas off the bench. And Captain Nico, for sure, right? Yeah, makes sense. You are not participating in our fantasy tournament. That is great. Let's join some leagues. So first of all, of course, join Et League. Okay, and then join my league as well. There's the two leagues that I'm always gonna be joining, I guess. Next up, captain. So Nico should be captained. Captain a day. I'm not sure if I would like to know if this captain stays on. I hope it just stays on, but I'll check tomorrow, and I'll just always captain him for the day. But okay, that's my lineup. So yeah, I'll put some links in the description down below if you also want to make a lineup. I definitely would say go for it. There's no real reason why you couldn't take part in this and HLTV Fantasy. That's at least my thinking. Either way, I'm thinking a lot about which teams I think are gonna do well, which players I think are gonna do well in each tournament. So this just has a chance to get me more rewards, and I can make a couple more videos for each tournament. So that's just a plus for me. Yeah, but if you enjoyed this kind of content, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.